your God. I am the Lord. Now notice verse 32. You shall rise before the gray-headed and honor the presence of an old man. And then it says, and fear your God. I am the Lord. Are you catching how the fear of God in our lives affects the way we treat other people? Notice Leviticus 25, and we'll read verse 17 and verse 36 and also verse 43. It says there, therefore you shall not oppress one another, but you shall fear your God. Notice that when we fear God, we don't oppress other people. For I am the Lord your God. Also, notice what he says, take no usury. You know what usury is? It's an exorbitant amount of interest. It's taking advantage of people financially. And so it says, take no usury or interest from him, but fear your God, that your brother may live with you. And notice Leviticus 25 and verse 43. Leviticus 25 and verse 43 says, you shall not rule over him with rigor. That is so over your neighbor. You shall not rule over him with rigor, but you shall fear your God. So in other words, having the fear of God in our lives leads us to keep God's law, and it leads us to love our fellow human beings. Now let's read a few other verses that show how important it is when we fear God to obey him and do his will. Deuteronomy chapter 5 and verse 29. Deuteronomy chapter 5 and verse 29. Notice how God opens up his heart to Israel. He says, oh, that they had such a heart in them that they would fear me. Now notice, what does fear lead to? That they would fear me and what? And always keep my commandments. All my commandments. That it might be well with them and with their children forever. What does it mean to fear God? It means always to keep what? All of God's commandments, according to this passage. Notice Deuteronomy chapter 8 and verse 6, and I'm reading so many of these, so you don't think that I'm just picking and choosing a verse here or a verse there. In Scripture, the main connotation of the fear of the Lord or fearing God has to do with keeping God's commandments, departing from evil, doing good, loving our neighbor. In other words, it's related very closely with God's holy law. Notice Deuteronomy 8 and verse 6. Therefore, you shall keep the commandments of the Lord your God, to walk in his ways and to what? And to fear him. Notice once again the idea that the commandments are linked with fearing God. Notice Deuteronomy chapter 10 and verses 12 and 13. Deuteronomy chapter 10 and verses 12 and 13. And now, Israel, what does the Lord your God require of you? But to fear the Lord your God. Now notice all the synonyms. To fear the Lord your God. To walk in all his ways. And to love him. To serve the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. And to keep the commandments of the Lord and his statutes, which I command you today for your good. Let me ask you, does fearing God have anything to do with our own practical walk, everyday walk? Yes or no? It most certainly does. Because fearing God is explained here as walking with him, loving him, serving him, and keeping his what? And keeping his commandments.